So the meeting should take about an hour tonight. There's some pretty boring admin type stuff, and then there's the exciting overview from Simon and Craig and Rolf and Owen to let us know what's been happening throughout the past season. General Zoom etiquette, I think everyone's pretty much across it these days. Please mute your microphone and then unmute if you've got a question. Feel free to do that at any stage. You can also pop questions in the chat box if you'd prefer to do that. If you've joined on a different Zoom account that you may have registered or be a member, if you could just let us know so that we can keep track of who attended in terms of registrations. And finally, if you are not a paid up MSC member at the moment, you're more than welcome to be here, but please do abstain from voting when we have to move the motions. So I'll hand over to Simon to do the acknowledgement of country.
Alrighty, guys. We're here to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, recreate, party, and do all kinds of other stuff like sit in our hotel rooms or in our apartments or in our houses for weeks on end while we struggle through COVID. But regardless, the breadth of this is very broad. And my research is rigorous, but I'm going to contain it to the places in which we recreate. So moving south to north, that includes the Taungurung people of the range that we know as Bulla-Sterling and the people that lived around in that area, that language group. They mainly don't live around there now. And that land extends up to Mount Buffalo, which is contested between themselves and the Doodarowa. Doodarowa extend up the Ovens Valley, which is where I am, all the way up to where Rolf and Nez are. And that's where an arbitrary line hands over to the Yamatang. And on the other side of that range is the Gunnakernai people in Victoria. Now, they open the doors to other language nations to come and feast on moth, and the breadth of that prospect is large, as did on the other side of the Murray, the Ngarigo people also welcomed people from far and wide to come and feast on moth in summer, and they didn't tango with winter. That was just the reality. So they're the places that we recreate. They're the people that we have never ceded sovereignty, and we need treaty. There you go. That's it.
Thanks, Simon. So first up, we just need to touch base on the previous AGM's minutes. Everyone should have got a copy of those with their Zoom link. So did anyone want to raise anything from the previous minutes? Did they see any errors, omissions, or issues with them? If you could just unmute yourself and let us know now. Cool. So we need to move a motion to approve the 2020 AGM minutes. Who would like to move that first?
I can move that because I'm not.
Yep, Simon. And would anyone like to second?
Yeah, seconded.
Thanks. Who was that?
Danny.
Danny,
Foster.
thanks, Danny. Cool. And in terms of business arising from the previous minutes, the main thing was that we had an action to change the name from Mountain Sports Collective to Mountain Safety Collective. As you'd all be aware, we took those steps, some of them still in progress, but the name has officially changed. So that was all picked up from the previous minutes and was the main action. So I will now hand over to Craig and Simon and Rolf to run through our President's Report and season review.
Excuse me. Thanks, Tarshi, and thanks again, everyone, for coming tonight and showing your support. This report is really aimed at summarizing some of the key events that happened this past season. And whilst not without its challenges, I think 2021 has been a great season for the MSC, and there are a lot of positive things in the works and coming down the tracks. So I thought we could kind of look at this past season. If you can just go back one, sorry, Tashi. Look at this past season in that chronological order. and highlight some of the key events that happened over the winter, and discuss some of the wins and also some of the challenges that we faced. And you can see here the outline of things that I'm going to discuss, but like Tashi said, also Simon and Rolf are going to jump in. So let's get into it. Thanks, Tash. So, well, way back in June, weren't our glasses pretty rosy then? Excuse me. The whole season ahead of us, COVID in the rearview mirror. So we thought we had some nice early season storms. And at the time, we were looking forward to that COVID-free season. Well, we all know how that went, but that's the only thing I'm going to say about COVID tonight. If you can go to the next slide, please. In June, we had the opportunity to get together with the ABC. So put MSC on the center stage for more, so that put it more in the front of people's minds when thinking about snow in Australia. And MSC was featured on the ABC Sunday 7 p.m. bulletin, or the bullet, I think it's called, on the 13th of June, on the bulletin, pardon me. And this was put together by Mel Clark. I'm not sure if Mel's in the room, but if she is, shout out to you, Mel, because we really appreciate your help putting this together. And also, along with the 7 p.m. bulletin, Mel put together an online article called Out of Bounds, which you see here. And these articles together had fantastic reach. The 7 p.m. bulletin alone reached well over 600,000 people. And this online article that you see here, Out of Bounds, was viewed by over 80,000 people. And I also think it's important to note that this article, people spent on average around 5 minutes reading it, which is an exceptionally long time when it comes to this media type. So as a result, we did see a lot more engagement with the MSC this year as in years past. And Simon and Nez will kind of dig into that when they discuss the website traffic and the annual membership. But anyway, overall, a great way to start the season. So the second thing that happened in June was we launched a QR code. And I'm going to hand it over to Simon for this next little section to talk about the QR code.
Yeah, the QR code, it was actually an initiative born unto us by Parks Victoria, Craig Hall, who we work with closely, who said, is there any chance that we could direct traffic from the trailhead to your website via a QR code? And I was like, give me 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure. And then from there, we've got the QR code and they tested it and it worked. And then the Parks guys went and put them out on, I think, 12 different locations, sort of key trailheads. Some of the weirder, more remote places weren't covered, but pretty much every significant junction and trailhead that was leading into the national park, be that from resorts or be that from just the end of the road, had our QR code. And it was really just an interesting experience. So, oh yeah, go for it, Tashi, because that was 250 or 225 people scanned that. And, you know, from my perspective, having at that point, we were like working on publishing forecasts, and you know, I'm at the local mechanics and he's bailed me up and he's like, oh yeah, my daughter, she's 19, she checks in with you guys every morning. I'm like, wow, okay, really got to make sure we nail this one. And I think that piece that Parks sort of initiated also speaks to that. Like, this is not the people in this room, this is not our crowd, this is genuine, this is public who are, you know, possibly the first time that they've ever engaged with us is simply via a QR code that they've scanned, and we've handed them the goods for the day. So that was a pretty exciting little project that happened. And we look to roll this out more extensively. I think we'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, no, thanks, Simon. Yeah, as Simon said, so that QR code was focused in Victoria early on. And then we did have it in different locations in New South Wales around Jindabyne, and we do intend on getting it into more locations for next season. So if you have any suggestions where you'd like to see it, please let us know after the meeting tonight or in the future. So moving on to July, as you can see, there are a lot of things happening. I'm going to elaborate on the first couple of bullet points in a minute, and because we had several operational changes that I think helped the way we operate as an organization, that I'd like to share with you. And then also MSC also engaged with some website developers who created, excuse me, created a forecasting app or a widget that Simon's going to take us through. And like Rolf alluded to, for some of you that were here early in the introductions, the first ever avalanche training center in Australia, which is awesome. And I'm looking forward to hear what Rolf has to tell us about that. I think it was very successful by all accounts. And then lastly, in July, Simon's going to take us through a bit of a case study. The 4th of July, hence the name, the Independence Day cycle, and what our lessons learned from that cycle were and the outcomes from this event. So operationally, we took our record keeping to the cloud. Previously, as in last season, the daily workflow was on my computer. I was just using Word and Excel to keep track of things. And although that worked well for just me, when it came to having others within the MSC, like Simon or Luca or Alex Snickers, going through their daily workflow and inputting their information, it just became apparent that having a cloud-based system would be the best. So this also allowed for various commercial operations in Victoria and New South Wales to input their information as well, which was good. Now, it isn't quite the information exchange of Canada, but I think it's a great step in the right direction of collaboration and information sharing. So maybe it's an info share rather than InfoX, perhaps. It hasn't been named. What I'd like to point out that the system that we're using, it's not unique to MSC and that we didn't invent it. But what we did was we tweaked it to meet our needs. So I know that Kyle Boys is in the room, so a shout out to Kyle. Thanks, man. Kyle does some field work for the MSC, and he also brought a similar system to Alpine Access Australia for their record keeping and operational communications. So I took Kyle's work and then tweaked it for what our needs were in MSC. And I guess while I'm on to the shout outs, I want to take a moment to say that without the help of the community, or the collective, if you will, what we do wouldn't be possible. It's really great. So many people have gotten on board this year and shown support in a variety of ways. And I think it's awesome that they believe in the importance of public safety and having this reliable public backcountry conditions report. And look, there is a long list of people that we owe thanks to. I won't be able to thank everybody, but I do want to give a special mention to 2 of the commercial operators who made a difference in 2021. First, the team at Mount Hotham, who embraced the MSC national database and entered copious amounts of data over the season regarding the weather, the snowpack, and the avalanche conditions. So, thank you all, appreciate it. And also, secondly, I'd like to give a big thanks to Alpine Access Australia. Dave and Pete, I know you're in the room. Thank you both. Can't thank you guys enough. Together, those 2 last season completed over 25 afternoon field reports, which added great value to the operation and the MSC. And this was also in addition of the many other ways that they've shown us support over the years. So thanks again, great contribution. And like I said, there's lots of people that are helping out and you're in this room. Thanks for your support. So that's it for the record keeping. And if you go back 1 slide, the other thing I wanted to talk about just quickly was this field team communications. We kind of put it in place because last year the communications within the field was kind of loosey-goosey, it's pretty loose. And we wanted to take the information and kind of streamline it. So what we did was we basically used Messenger and we set up a Victorian observations team and a New South Wales observation team. And we ended up with having about 15 members in each group. And this group or these groups consisted of mostly patrollers, guides, and educators. Folks with good skills passing on relevant information. Having everyone on Messenger helped streamline that information sharing and kept everyone in the loop of what was going on out there. And importantly, all that information was feeding right into the system for the purpose of creating those public backcountry condition reports. Also, the other thing is I could share where my knowledge gaps were and ask for targeted information. So we'll keep this running in 2022 and it will augment the MSC observation team that we hope to put in place next year. And that takes us to the forecasting app. We can stay on this slide and the backend developments. So from a user perspective, the way the daily condition report looked at the website this year changed slightly. We did receive feedback from the public about the look of the widget and received some suggestions of how to make it easier to find or how to use it when, so we tried to incorporate those things. But the big change was actually in the back end of the reporting. It was how MSC created the daily reports. So this platform was just a lot more user-friendly. It made it way easier for the operations team to report each day. And Simon's going to take us through this new MSC tool. Thanks, Simon.
Yeah, I think anyone who's worked at the back end of MSC will have this year felt like they had their life given back to them, because the amount of time that having a piece of bespoke technology that meant that you didn't have to manually wrangle graphics onto a page was incredible. This came out of a planning meeting that we had back in February, I think, as being an initiative that's probably well worth investing in. And luckily, I lucked on a developer who had spare time and was really good, and they turned it around. Originally, they had 2 weeks. It took them 3 weeks, but that was live July 1. We started using this tool, and what it did was it really sort of solidified the stuff that you're seeing on your screen now, where it was like, okay, by the time you're getting to the pointy end of telling a developer what you want to tell the people, you really got to have your words straight, because they're going to interrogate everything that you're telling them we're going to tell the people, which was great. So that ended up coming back to this Australian Mountain Hazards profile, effectively, which is on the website, so you guys can read this at your leisure. Again, we didn't invent much. We just sort of stole a lot of the user experience off our learned friends in Canada. My son's just finished a board game, but we'll get back to that later. Sorry, bud, give us a minute. Okay, come and show all these people your board game map. Sweet. Give us half a. Not now, dude. You've got no idea. So what we were, it made us get our ducks in line, and it showed where we could borrow from an existing international standard, which is the risk management standard, and also the CAML, which is an abbreviation for an API language that they use. It's all nerdy stuff, but at the end of the day, Tashi, it made us get our game straight, into which we distilled what our communication would be, which is what you see before here, which I think has worked pretty well. We all know this stuff now because we've been looking at it all year, well, all season. And when you get to the actual, on the pages now, you get the full-blown description of all of the characteristics of the hazards that we're forecasting. Tashi, hit us with the next one. Obviously, avalanche danger is still an important part of it, but it's within a greater consideration of all of the hazards that present themselves on the range. Next one. And this sort of shows you a little bit how the back end works. So, we're toggling between usual caution, extra caution, and travel not recommended. And later on, we can review how the season rolled out through that lens. But effectively, what happens is between the PM and the AM and the forecaster and everything that we're looking at and is being fed in, you end up generating a hazard score for alpine and subalpine, of which there are sort of flagfall levels that work in the metric, at which point this tech spits out for us, based off what we've input and written, the forecast without us having to manually do that. And we can go into, if anyone's got questions on the nuances of this stuff, we can go right into it later. Tashi? And this is what it looks like, your top blue button, create a report. Go for it, Tashi. And then once you get in there, it's this simple, guys. We just go through and tick the boxes that we've processed. Now, obviously, there's paperwork that comes before the point at which you sit down and do this. And it's all very familiar because it's very similar to what you see on the front end. Yeah, go Tash. And then this is what goes out on the actual web page, which is accessed via the widget, which I think is the next slide. Oh no, sorry, out of order. So that's still inside the tool. Yeah, go to the next page. So for example, that is one form, which is a static form, which is what we're at now and will be until the end of October in the main range. I don't reckon there's much snow left in Victoria. Go to the next one, Tashi, thanks. Oh, sorry, we don't have the widget in there. That's funny. But the widget is the bit that we've been looking at that you see on the website when you look. That's funny. The developer's calling you right now. Just have to push him off. But the widget itself, we started off with was just main range, dividing range, and front range, and it looked awesome. But people didn't realize that it was the forecast, so we stripped it back and made it look a lot more like what you see here, where it's just like really straightforward, really simple, really clear. And interestingly, yeah, the traffic picked up, so people recognized it. I'm not sure what is next, Tashi. Okay, so then within this, what you see before you here is the dividing range, the front range, and the main range. And for anyone who's not familiar with, dividing range is basically bogong, feathertop, and everything in that vicinity. Front range is bawbaw, sterling, bogong, which is a huge area, but it's also so low lying that it shares distinct similarities. Where there's a correlation across that, which is that it's always icy or raining, and then obviously the main range, which is a far more compact area when you actually compare it, is New South Wales. And when I look at this is this season. Craig put this together just a couple of days ago. I was looking at it, I was like, well, that's about right. You know, like you sort of expect for good days to be equal to absolute shockers and everything else in between to be extra caution in the alpine of a season on an average. And you would also expect that more days are going to be usual caution in the subalpine than not. And yeah, because that's where you do end up spending. I've spent a lot of time there this season, and these pie charts kind of reflect that. Is there anything else there, Craig, that we were riffing on that I might have missed?
No, that's good, Simon.
Great. This one is. So then we're running around. Everyone's running around, looking at the snow, having a ski, publishing reports, and this is like the page that I don't look at it until October, because it's I think tough when you like, oh, you know, like who's tuning in. Once you get, and you can see here, once you get to August, both states are in the grips of COVID, not to mention it, but it's like usually we see that hump is centered on August, and August is the middle of the hill. So this is by no means a normal year for us. We all know that. And also when it comes to the visits, 14K is the same as roughly the same as what we had last year. Only last year was a growth of 22% year on year. Whereas even though there's so many more people accessing the backcountry, I've also got a suspicion that a lot of people who were in lockdown were not even taunting themselves by looking at the backcountry forecast, because it was just not cool. It was torture. So interesting times, you know, unprecedented. But I still feel positive about that traffic. People are finding us. They're finding the Safety Collective. You know, they know that motion that was moved worked, and it must be grippier than sports. So that's a happy thing, you know. there's a lot of traffic. If you go back, Tashi, just one, can we go back to the page? There's 41,000 individual page views, and that's coming off that unique visitors, which is 8,500, and that figure's grown by 2,000 people in the last 2 seasons. So that alone tells you what we all know, which is that there are a hell of a lot more people getting out there. And 41,000 page views is not to be scoffed at. That's a lot of people going, oh, they reckon it's not recommended. You know, I always have this vision in my mind of, you know, frothing guy, super keen, and his girlfriend pulls the app out and goes, MSC says not recommended today, baby. Maybe we shouldn't go out. and that's where I see those 41,000 page views. A lot of people are checking in to see, just get a second opinion, you know. Yeah, I think that is me for that section. Cheers.
Just had a quick question there, Simon, from Sam about, do we know where that traffic's coming from, or where they're based? By state?
Oh, we don't have it by state, but it's all Australia. There is, thankfully, Squarespace culls out all troll bots that hit us. So they're firm figures, they're real people, and they're just in Australia. A few people in Canada, strangely, Craig, maybe your friend.
Yeah, and there's some folks checking in on, they appreciate what we're doing over here. But thanks, Simon, that's great. I'd like to pass it over to Rolf, who's going to discuss the one and only first of its kind in Australia, the Avalanche Training Center.
Yes. Yeah, 2021 was the year that we finally made it, and the MSC established the first Avalanche Training Center in the Southern Hemisphere. It's been a long project to get this off the ground, and it was all made possible partially by all the individual pledges of members over the last 2 to 3 years. We received a grant which came out of the Alpine Recovery Fund into our hands, and we had some corporate sponsorship from Alpine Access and from Mammut, and partially the generosity of the manufacturer, who gave us the control unit basically for free. So we were able to set this up at Hotham this year. It was unfortunate that Melbourne couldn't come and practice, but during the short period that we had the ATC operating at here's some pictures of the setting up, bearing of the transceivers. We got 250 exercises in. And the feedback from Switzerland was that for 2 months, that is a fantastic figure. And I'm sure if we wouldn't have had lockdowns, COVID lockdowns, we would have cracked 1,000. So there's next year, we'll be up and running again, probably the same location. Yeah, and it went through all weather, as you can see, and worked like a Swiss clock. Yeah. The top right picture is the control unit after we've had it all packed up, and gave us the 250 exercises and 13 in expert mode. And I think Ski Patrol probably got the best run out of the Beacon Training Park. Do we have someone from Ski Patrol here? No?
It says someone got a minimum time of 1 minute, Rolf.
What?
Is that possible?
No, that's a different thing. That's when it shuts down.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
The big aim for next year is to get one going in New South Wales, and costs have all risen, not so much from the manufacturer, but in transport. So if we want to get one going in New South Wales, we're going to have to look at about $30,000. So we need to get together. So whether we're going to I'm open for suggestions how we're going to get that happening. But that's why we've got so many members. Good work. Thanks.
Thank you, Rolf. And Simon, you want to discuss this Independence Day case study?
Yep, for sure. Let's jump in there, Natasha, if you, I feel like I'm a bit laggy. Independence Day started at 7 o'clock. I got up, I checked everything, all of the inputs that we usually check. And it was weird because I was really tipping that we were going to be staring at, you know, the gut feeling was that there would be a building avalanche hazard and that we were moving from moderate to considerable. And if you go to the next slide, Natasha, the next one, is that working? No, that's the one. So you can see on the 4th of July, the forecast that I look at from the Bureau, which at the end of the day is like, it's a kind of the basic place that you sort of turn to thinking that you're going to find your ultimate truth, said that the winds were calm, as does this observations form that is still published. Like I pulled this out live today. And obviously with a building avalanche hazard, the thing that I was looking for was the fact that transportation would be taking effect, because we could see that the wind was shifting from northwest into the west and then across to the south, and then that was going to redistribute the snow. And that's exactly what Bill said at 10 o'clock after he filled out the national observations form. This is Bill Barker up at Ski Patrol, at which point he's hot on the phone and he's like, Simo, what is going on? You're wrong. There's already been a burial, partial burial, avalanche involvement. And I was like, I know, I'm just driving past Diamond Tree in a car park right now and it's howling. How on earth can the Bureau be that wrong? And I sort of, and I've talked to a few people about it, and I feel like, so this is the written forecast. This is actually the written forecast that you can look at. And it literally said that the wind was calm. And I think that what has happened is that the Bureau, over such a long period of poor or non-existent quality control, and the fact that the automatic weather station has gone down consistently when the wind shifts from northwest through to south, because it just gets covered in rime, is actually feeding into the algorithm that writes the forecast, because those forecasts are written by a computer, they're not written by a human anymore. So then, okay, we were wrong. It was avalanche danger was considerable. You know, human triggered avalanche is likely. I think it says here 40 centimeter crown, 25 meters wide, ran for 30 meters. Luckily for that guy who was just cutting off the back of a ski run back to his accommodation, he was able to extract himself. He lost his ski. That ski is probably just sticking out of the snow right now, if anyone wants it. And, you know, but from our point of view, it's like, damn, like Ski Patrol's so busy. They've got an escalating situation. It's hard to get the lifts rolling when it's like that. Those obs didn't come in until mid-morning. Thankfully, Rolf, Luca, Nez, myself were all headed up in the subalpine at some capacity, and we rectified the situation within minutes of having that realization. But, you know, a failing or a mistake is only as you can only make it good by solving the problem, which we did. If you go to the next slide, Natasha, it was obvious that what we were missing was some kind of remote control observation, because we're all in the valley. Sometimes we're not even in the valley. Sometimes people will be in the city or a long way away. And what we did was that I met up with this guy, and William might be in the room tonight. I would venture that he's quite a mad inventor, and he's got some great ideas, and he makes these are cameras that are installed inside 90mm drain pipe conduit that we've been able to stick out with Parks's approval in the national park in a bunch of places, and it gives us wind direction, it gives us visibility, it gives us the fact that it's snowing, but the left-hand one, Missy, and the right-hand one, Mr. Big, are 20 kilometers apart. So they're miles apart, and they're in remote places. So it's like, yes, finally, now we have, that won't ever happen again. There's no reason why we'll sit there and go, oh, but the Bureau says it's calm. It's like, should have known better. And now we can back ourselves with that call. Because these are decisions that are being made at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah. And often when it's serious, like Ski Patrol's experience, it's like, it's hard to get out there and look at these cameras. They're out there weathering the storm for us. Thanks, guys. So we're going to, I think, if you go to the next slide, Natasha, one of the, this worked so well for us that the initiative, at least in Victoria, and hopefully we can get New South Wales parks across the line as well, is to install an array of these guys. Enhanced versions, ones that give us, temperature, possibly temperature above and below. So temperature in the snowpack and temperature in the air, barometers and wind direction. And obviously, and just also that visual, like Craig has said since he joined us, like a picture tells 1,000 words. You take a look at those photos and you know what that day's like. You know exactly what that day's like. Interestingly, when it blows from the southeast, though, sometimes or if it's coming from the northwest camera's just socked in and you can't see anything, and the southeast camera's bluebird, and that's also telling, because you're like, wow, all of a sudden we've got a spatial distribution problem of different storm characteristics. And when it switches around and goes southeasterly, you're like, oh, again, hang on, we can't, what is apples for Hotham is not apples for Bogong, for example. So having more of them is better. So that is that's the long story of having Bill Barker yell at me early in the morning and me going, that's not going to happen again.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks, Simon. Like you said, good learnings there. I just wanted to make a note, like it's definitely not a bomb thing. It's just an automatic weather station thing. The remote weather stations have their nuances, they have their challenges, and that's why it's always really important to go out and validate your forecast, and sometimes mistakes happen. So I think those weather cameras that we have in place in Victoria are gold. I do have a few more small ideas for them for next season to give us even more spot information from those hard to get areas. And I think they'll serve this MSC well. And if you can just stay on that slide for a bit. So for September, we launched 2 initiatives. As you can see, we launched, not lost. I hope we didn't lose them yet. We've launched 2 initiatives of the ambassador program and the sponsorship program. So firstly, the ambassador program, if you can go to the next slide. Look, this is in its infancy. We think that having ambassadors is a great way to amplify the MSC message and help drive awareness and traffic to the website, and ultimately get more public seeing our message. We're being really strategic about the people we approach. And of course, our goal is to cover a wide swath of the sector, if you will, so that we can get as many different user groups and types are reached as possible. And so I'm happy to announce tonight, just the first 3. We do have more than 3, but those people will be mentioned later, but we do the first 3 ambassadors of the MSC. The first and foremost, Tim McCartney-Snape. Tim was part of the first Australian team to summit Everest on a new route and without oxygen nonetheless. He's remained a committed adventurer and recreationalist and has never stopped climbing and skiing. He's been a supporter of the Mountain Safety Collective since our early days, and it's a great honor to have Tim as our founding ambassador. Our second ambassador is Alex Parsons, who's in the room. Hey, Alex. Alex's career, she actually started off as a creative writer before the lure of the mountains took her away from her desk in Sydney and to snowboard the world. Alex is now the head guide of Threadbow's backcountry tours, and she also contributes content to a range of snow-focused publications. Look, she's a committed backcountry professional, an exceptional communicator, and we're excited to welcome Alex. So thanks, Alex.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's nice having you. Thirdly is Mr. Drew Holwicks, and Drew is down in the Hotham area. Look, he's probably skied every winter since he was 4 and then some. He's been a racer, jibber, professional free skier. When he's in Oz, like I said, his home base is Hotham. You also see him gracing the pages of some of the ski mags from his frequent international adventures. So it's great to also have Drew on board. Like I said, there will be more ambassador announcements in the coming weeks, but you need to stay tuned for those. I think it's going to be a great program, and I think we're off to an excellent start with these 3. Thank you, you guys, everybody. And that takes us to the last thing that I'm going to talk about tonight, which is our sponsorship program. If you can stay on that slide for a sec. So new for 2022, MSC started to formalize a corporate sponsorship program to fund the expansion and the professionalization of our service. There will be different tiers of sponsorship, and with them, responsibilities between the sponsor and the MSC will differ. What I'm happy to announce is that we have signed a contract with a signature sponsor, and hot off the press, like literally, I think I signed this yesterday. MSC now has a 3-year signature sponsorship agreement with Arc'teryx. Stoked. Thanks, a big thanks to Hayden Stevens of Arc'teryx and our very own Owen Lansbury for putting this deal together. I'm really looking forward to working with Arc'teryx in the coming years. I think it is a great fit, and that's not just the biased Canadian in me. They're an awesome company, and I'm really happy to have their support for the next 3 years. And so with that, I believe I am passing the mic over to Narelle, or sorry, back to Natasha.
Yeah, yep. So
Okay.
Thanks for the President's report, guys. We just need to move a motion to accept the President's report. So I'm happy to move that if somebody wants to second it.
Seconded.
Awesome. Thank you, Owen. Next up, we've got the Treasurer's report from Nez. So Nez, I'll hand over to you.
Hi, everyone. So this is a tough gig to follow all the fun bits that we've just been listening to, but some of this will help explain why we're now moving towards a sponsorship model as well. So let's have a look at the figures till the end of, and just a reminder, this is the end of May 2021, so it doesn't cover the current winter period that we've just gone through. So our total revenue was 51,000. A lot of that was made up of our memberships, and without you, we wouldn't be here. So a big thank you to all of our members, and many of you have come back again for this financial year. So that's really important to us. You will notice in our income for this past financial year that we received a grant of $30,000 from Parks Victoria that was made possible through Outdoors Vic. And without that continued support, we would really struggle to be able to provide the type of service that we are offering today. As you can see, the service has increased every year that we've been up and running. We've been making the service better and better. So without that kind of grant, we just wouldn't be able to continue to offer an awesome service and grow on that. Our cost of sales, 9,731. And you can see the expenses there that we have. A large number of expenses from association fees to website hosting, and the biggest expense that we had for that particular financial year was advisory updates. So that should be paying for the forecasting that we have. So the balance sheet actually looking at it till, as I said, till the end of May 31 is, we have a total equity of $25,676 at the end of that particular financial year. What it doesn't include is what's happened this financial year. So I can give you a really quick run through of how that looks. Pretty much what we earned this financial year coming into for the 21-22 We've spent pretty much all of it. So our total equity is still looking at a pretty similar amount as what it was at the end of the financial year last year at 25,000. So as you can see, at our current rate of making things better, improving the website, doing all the great things that everyone's just spoken to, means that we do need to look at that sponsorship model as to how else we can have funds coming in, which is why I'm really stoked to hear that we've also got the funding coming through for sponsorship, which is fantastic for us to be able to provide an awesome service to everyone. And that's really it for me.
Thanks, Nezzy.
Oh, I can talk about the memberships actually. So talking about the memberships, this gives a little bit of a breakdown of how we've gone with our memberships over the last few years. So you can see we started off in 17-18 with 203. You can see us moving up into, we're close to 390 current year to date. And that's a split between people that are renewing. So thank you to our existing members who continue to renew year after year. It's very much welcomed for you to come and help us on the continued journey. And we're also getting new members each year as well, which is really pleasing to see as well. You can see there's stats there for the memberships between the states. We've also increased participation for New South Wales over the time, which is also fantastic. And that's really all I've got to say.
Thanks, Nez. So next up, we just need to confirm that we are keeping our subscription fee at $50 per annum. That's what the committee has proposed. So I'm happy to move that if somebody would like to second it.
I'll second it.
I got two people at once. Who was that?
James Rams.
James?
Yeah, I'll
Thank
second
you,
it.
James.
No worries.
And, you know, we're also happy to hear throughout the year if people feel like this annual subscription fee is too low or too high. That's something we're happy to hear feedback on throughout the year. Next up is to confirm the committee moving forward into the 2022 season. So we had 3 nominations for open positions. As you may remember from last AGM, at each AGM, essentially half the official committee positions are made vacant. So that's 3 each year. So this year we had Owen nominate, which is fantastic as Owen had been helping us out since Peter had resigned earlier in the year. We've also got Rolf stepping back up into an official committee position and myself nominating again, as the role of secretary is no one's favourite. So quite often it's left vacant. So that because we only had 3 nominations, that leaves us not needing to do a ballot. And we have the following committee structure moving forward at the moment. So Craig remains in president, Simon in vice president role, and Narelle as treasurer. I've also noted down some of the people who've been helping us on subcommittee positions lately, which has been a great help. So Peter's still been helping out where possible, and Kelly, Cam Walker, and Sam Robinson. And I think this is a good point as well to also thank Peter and Cam, who have stepped down from official committee positions in the past year for their assistance. And we know that everyone has a day job and does this in their own time. So a big thank you to both of them. And that brings us to what's coming up for next year.
Thanks, Tashi. Yeah, well, and so thanks everyone for turning up tonight. And it's just before we turn it over to the floor for Q&A, thought look at some things for 2022 to look forward to. Firstly, we'll continue to develop and strengthen those relationships that we have with the commercial operations, government bodies, the backcountry community. And there will be some good news coming up for New South Wales. There'll be an announcement in due time, something with the National Parks and Wildlife Service from New South Wales and the MSC. So keep your ear to the ground on that one. Got some good things coming down the tracks. Recruiting field observation team. So what we intend to do is to recruit a field team for both Victoria and New South Wales and have dedicated technicians. And this will help improve the knowledge gaps in the season at key times. And also give me, the forecaster of the day, the ability to actually give more direction regarding targeted information needed. And so these observers will have at a minimum a Canadian Avalanche Operations Level 1 course or equivalent. So we'll be looking to get those into place for next year. As Simon discussed, those digital field observation plots, the MSC intends to grow that asset and find more plots for them in strategic areas, in places where we need them. And then lastly, a focus for the 2022, what I'd like to see is just that increase of community engagement with the MSC. We do have something on our website that's kind of similar to Canada's MIN, which is the Mountain Information Network, where the public actually sends in their observations. And there just wasn't as much engagement with that this year as I think there could be. So we'd like to get that up and running so that while we have a lot of the professionals, the patrollers, the guides, the people that are helping the MSC, also just get the public involved. So we'll try to grow that. And that's where we're at, folks. So now I'll turn it over to you for the Q&A. Looking forward to it.
Yes, so now's really a time for anyone to ask questions or bring up points of discussion. I think I'll let Simon take over as the Q&A man from here.
Cool. I've just noticed that I'm logged in as my partner, which is weird. Hi, my name's Kylie. Any questions? Anyone even got just remote, abstract, really concise thoughts? We're going to move into training sessions. What can we expect, Alex Parsons?
Tim here would like to ask about an end of season party.
Yeah,
End
are
of
we
season
meeting at
party.
Smoko for the end of season party? Is that
Dude,
still the plan?
I thought about that literally, like,
Yeah.
yes. Even if it happens, if it has to be in January, we will get there. The minute that the gates open, we'll do that.
I'll take on Alex.
Yeah, Craig, you take that one.
Yeah, so regarding training sessions, though, yeah, I guess the quick answer is yes, but how they roll out is the big question. And I think, Alex, what ended up happening this year and which will happen next year too is kind of it's an individual relationship with each person that's out there observing. And I guess the more people are putting into it, the more they're getting out of it. Because obviously the MSC isn't going to provide training sessions for the whole community at large. But the core group of the observers that are inputting into our system, that's where that mentorship comes in. So that because it's a direct line from the forecaster to the observer and back and forth. So does that answer your question?
Sure does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'm looking forward to you being on there next year.
Thank you. I'm stoked.
Kelly Vandenberg, what is the structure of state-specific subcommittees for 2022? I think the way that I understand the original conception of subcommittees is that as an organisation, everyone is free to form subcommittees in any relevant faculty that they choose to, and I guess there are always sort of recognised action points, like what Craig just mentioned about community engagement, for example, which is kind of where those subcommittees work really well, because it takes a lot of, and along with ambassadors, for example, it takes a lot of people having conversations to push the broader agenda. But yeah, it's wide open, Kelly. So we're free to structure subcommittees under issues like, I know Cam would like to make a poo tube subcommittee. Like there's options.
Because I think the original, like I was sort of pulled in this year actually, which, wasn't really a great year because of COVID, but, originally the whole idea of the Victorian subcommittee was to engage more people, and we were going to have social nights and things. So I guess, is that going to continue and move forward into 2022?
Absolutely. I feel like there's a lot of momentum behind doing information nights, and it feels like some of them are going to be co-branded along with Arcturix now. Just good relevant stuff in the lead up to the season, and then even afterwards, like what we're doing now. Like
we had a lot set up for this season, but we couldn't roll it out because of the limitations.
Let's not mention a backcountry festival either while we're at it, Kelly.
No, don't mention
that. Wow. And
I might just add to that a bit, Simon. So with the sponsorship program, a big component of that, like Simon mentioned, is collaboration with sponsors around educational opportunities and social opportunities and that type of thing. So a lot of the role of the committee this year and any subcommittees will be around the fulfillment of our sponsorship obligations and collaboration. So I'm expecting that we'll be reaching out to people to assist with that in quite a big way.
Fantastic, thank you.
Great. There's a question from Anne. Have we surveyed the members who have not renewed so we can try to reduce churn rate?
Craig, I'll take that one if you like. Thanks, Annie. We haven't surveyed those people specifically, but we have received some feedback from them. Some of them joined up because they were in it for the maps, basically, when we were offering maps as our freebie with membership. Some people have moved on and moved overseas to other things and no longer in the snow industry per se. Others have come back again. So what we are seeing is they might drop out for a year or two, but then come back. So there is a little bit of renewing from over a time where they may have started out in 17, 18 and have come back this year. But it's a good idea for us to check out what's the driver for those that haven't renewed. But we certainly saw a lot of people renewing again this year that had been previous members. I think that also speaks to the engagement, the need for us to continue that engagement as well.
Thank you.
I'll just add one last thing about the memberships too, and because Nez, you made me think of it when you mentioned the maps, is that one of the benefits of having that corporate sponsorship and the relationship with Arc'teryx is that will then also have knock-on effects to the membership. So the members who are signing up in the future can look to have some perks in that way from Arc'teryx without getting into the specifics at this time. Is there a plan to have an app in the future, Simon?
Oh, such a good question. You know, like I have fantasies of having an app that's got our maps and our forecasts baked into the same view, right? And I even got it costed at one point, and it was far in excess of the cost of installing an ATC, let's put it that way. But it feels like it's definitely the space that we should move into. I used to be resistant around apps because I don't want to have someone reliant on technology for geolocation and or their safety if the batteries run out. But nowadays it seems like batteries last for days, whereas the last time someone asked that, batteries in the cold lasted for minutes. So it's a really good question, and yeah, I'd love to explore it again. There's a lot of value in having it that way, especially with the push notification, the fact that if you allowed it to, it would deliver you every morning straight from the desk of Craig Shepherd, the forecast, right? And that's powerful. Yeah, I just we need to find some really cheap some app developers somewhere, or just find a huge amount of cash somewhere. Yeah.
In-app notifications, great, but yeah, like you said, Simon, app development is really, really expensive, but you could do it the hard way until you can afford it. So like people have email, so maybe we could just start sending daily emails that go, you know, Craig's report is up, similar to Mount Hotham's bill report, because that will drive people back to the site on a daily basis.
Yeah, ways of automating to get to ship the message outside of people having to come to the web is something, and likewise with social media, but it needs to be automated because at the moment it's all hours on the clock when time is of the essence. So yeah, let's stick that in the minutes and explore that one for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Anne.
I think Sam wanted to jump in. Did you?
Yeah, probably just a broad question. It was interesting to see sort of 8,500 unique visitors in the past financial year. And sorry, with the membership number, I didn't get exactly. Was it a high 200s or 400, somewhere around there? Have we got a goal for next season in terms of subscribed members across Vic and New South Wales?
Hi, Sam. Our current membership is at about 387. Our goal is always to have as many as we can. We certainly haven't got a restriction on that, but it's that, yeah, it's just finding those ways to encourage people to join us and for them to understand what it is that they're joining as well, is one thing that, that comes back to that community engagement again, and making sure that people know who we are and what we're there for. And I think that's where we've got more work to do in that space.
I'll talk to that from a fundraising perspective. So I think we can be reasonably confident there's around 10,000 active backcountry recreationalists in Australia, based on Facebook groups and traffic to the site and that type of thing. So an arbitrary target that we have put in a document somewhere is 10% of that, which would be nice. It's pretty ambitious to double the numbers in 1 year, but I think if we're sitting around that number long term, that would be a good target to be aiming for.
Yeah, let's throw a big hairy goal out there and get after it.
And I think the other thing to point out is that engagement is just as important as membership for us. So with this move to kind of a sponsorship model where we've got sustainable recurring revenue coming from sponsors, that does lessen the urgency for membership dollars. And membership is much more around engagement as opposed to revenue from my perspective. So
I think the other interesting, like membership is also when you're talking to government for whatever reason, they're just like, how many people do you have? Like, how many people are your members? So it is important that we stay a membership organisation, because that seems to be the thing that ticks a lot of funding boxes out there. So yeah, let's stick a big, hairy, weird target out there and aim for it. Yeah, hairy and weird like that. And you, Sam, that's quite the manpower, dude.
I only feel like mini-me in comparison with this beard. I'll just say something briefly. As from a commercial operator point of view, it would be really handy. I mean, we put probably, I don't know, hundreds of people through training every year in New South Wales and Victoria, and we need a brochure, we need a flyer, we need things that people walk out of the room with, that they take home, that's just generic. But and there's a couple of commercial operators here tonight. Ross, welcome. And I think that'd be a really handy thing for us. And am I right in thinking that there will be incentives with the Arc'teryx program for people to become members?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there, Dave. First thing is, with sponsors, there's already discussion around co-branded materials, either specific to the sponsor themselves or generic materials that we can deliver to whoever wants them. And that might be things like brochures, it might be point of sale displays, like we've kind of got in a kind of nascent state with the QR codes at the moment. So that's definitely underway. And then with Arc'teryx specifically, there is a member discount available, which we'll announce in due course. And that's for obviously current and future members. as an incentive. We've just got to work out how that code might work on their site, but that'll all come in the next couple of months, I'd say. And that doesn't preclude other sponsors from offering those types of deals as well to members. So I think what we're kind of aiming for with the sponsorship program is it's as much about providing a mechanism for providers to have concrete interaction with our membership base as it is about us promoting what we do.
Cool. So there's just a couple other questions that have come through. Alex has said, what's the best way members can spread the good word of MSC? And related is, have we tried a membership drive via the various backcountry groups or online through Facebook?
Oh, it's tricky, isn't it? You know, I think, well, I feel like we've been on a journey where in all reality, things have only just got to a point where everyone involved feels confident and strong that the product and the information that we're offering is reliable and concrete and worthy. So I would, you know, why haven't we before? And it's like, I don't know, I've felt like we were incumbent, like people would go and state that case and jump in on Facebook on our behalf as members and be like, oh, you know, check out Facebook, check out MSC on Facebook and do links and stuff. And we haven't actually done the beat the drum, join MSC, you know, yet. Because it just, yeah, it feels, and I want to be that organization. It's like, yeah, I've used the similarity that we're like a community radio station before, and I hate the radiothon. I'd rather be a member without having to put up with the radiothon part of it. But you're right, we probably do need to just actually light a fire under it and tell people more about what we do, why we do it, and who's doing it, and how it lives. So. I think that's probably what you're thinking about, Craig, isn't it? When you get to the community outreach part, that's a big part. And we've got our ducks lined up now, so we can start to beat that drum.
Yeah. What I'd like to add is that I think the MSC is on a good trajectory, and I don't think that we need to be searching for exponential growth tomorrow. I think the steps that the MSC has taken in the past years has led us to this point now, and we're in a good place. I think one of the crucial things is that with the government backing, being recognized as the body that the government trusts to pass information to the public, that holds a lot of weight. And so we're just getting to the point where, yes, we can, if you will, beat the drum, but it needed to get to that point, and it's getting to that point by the processes we're going through. And we need to make sure that we're still making the best reports we can with the best methods that we can. And like I keep saying, that takes this whole community too, right? So I definitely would love to see the membership increase, but it has to just go through this growth. Canada, you know, it took years and years and years, decades for it to get to where it is, and so we're going in the right direction, I think.
Just looking at the questions or the sort of comments really, aren't they, around how, you know, moving forward, spreading the QR code.
Yeah,
maybe we could get that to a few more locations. And it's a funny one, because there are many things afoot in the commercial world of resort management right now, particularly in Victoria, and it's quite obvious that Mountain Safety Collective is not ever going to be best friends with a lift company, theoretically, but I hope that we can turn that corner, you know, because so many people in the room themselves now have stated it. And why not? Like, why can't you have the QR code on the back of the chairlift, for example? Like, that's the spot that I always think of. It's like, oh, you know, cut a few laps of the resort and then I might scooch over the back for another couple of turns. It'd be fun to see the QR code on the chairlift.
Can't we
As a
just
thought.
stick a sticker on there?
Yeah,
And
totally.
Like, why do we need Hotham's permission to do that? Everyone else promotes their business through stickers.
Yeah, well, that might not be the trusted advice footing that we want to be perceived on, but yeah, more like the kind of guerrilla safety platform, which we kind of have been for a long time. Yeah. Any other thoughts from other people in the room on that? Because
Sam's
I know
got his hand up.
there's people with experience within resort management right here, right now.
Yeah, I might jump in on that. You know, it's a really interesting space, right? Because in some lens, a historical lens, you know, this is encouraging people to do something other than a resort. But realistically, every skier or boarder's got a resort where they go and introduce people to the sport or go and connect with friends and that. So I think it's really important for us to have a foundational relationship with the resorts. And there's an appetite. There's definitely an appetite, having worked resort side. There's an appetite for it. And I think there's an opportunity for us to engage well and make sure that it's benefiting both. You know, having a sort of us and them doesn't help anyone on this journey. So
yeah. And to be fair, all the resorts that I've talked to in Australia have welcomed me and had discussions. And there's definitely varying levels of support and being proactive support, I would say. I think there's passive support there. I didn't have any there's no negative ill will from any of the resorts that I talked to. But definitely some resorts are more proactive in getting on board. But I think that sometimes ties to what they're trying to chase in terms of what their resort stands for or how it's structured, the difference between New South Wales and Victoria, for example. So, but yeah, definitely great conversations with all the resorts and suspect they all will in time come with us.
Well, I'm just trying to, navigating. There's a lot of support out there, guys. It's great. Yeah, emails and aligning ourselves with resorts rather than being adversarial. We've never said our footing has never been adversarial. We have a really good relationship with ski patrollers and everyone who's working on the safety part of it. And you know, through the association with the Backcountry Festival at Hotham, for example, we have a good relationship with the resort management there too. From a marketing point of view. So I think, yeah, we just need to keep knocking on the door and just, it's all about the love, you know. You can, for me, I'm unique. I've only got about 20 days of riding a lift in me in a season before I can't help, but I have to wander. And for other people, it might be lower or higher, but they're two activities that take place in the same location. So yeah, it's a missed opportunity if we don't. Yeah.
It will also be very nice when we can travel freely from each other's states. And that will also help with some of these face-to-face conversations and engagements and stuff. So it's been a tricky 2 years, last season and this season for sure, in a lot of ways for a lot of people.
Yeah, you guys have still got snow. I would love to come and visit the main range right now.
It's real. It's on. It's on. It's snowing. It's snowing at the end of the week. It's on, guys.
It's back on. Okay, cool. I'll see you. No, don't do it. Is there any other questions? Matt Burr, yep, tick, digital dev, got that. It just sounds like everyone's got a very positive accord, which is a great way to end the evening. Any other comments? Any other questions that you want to level at us now?
Cool. We wrap it up there. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for joining, and also a big thank you to the committee, Craig, Nez, Simon, Rolf, Owen. Everyone's been putting in heaps of time lately to make the MSC ship sail, so to speak. So yeah, big thank you to everyone, and thanks for taking the time to join us tonight.
And thanks to everyone who's been there in the wings in any capacity, digging, looking, thinking, emailing, sharing on internet, however it happens. It's really encouraging, and let's see more of it. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Signing off.
Nice work. See you guys.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. Peace out.
Thanks. Bye. Maybe.